it is my pleasure today to welcome back Dr. Tanya G. Tanya is a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine with over 30 years of clinical experience and a thriving multidisciplinary clinic located here in Vancouver. Known for her intuitive, heart-led approach, Tanya blends ancient healing traditions with modern healthcare, guided by the principles of service, devotion, compassion, and love. Tanya is also a global educator and a board member of the Numa Institute Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving ancient wisdom from the Q'ero people of Peru and the Tibetan Buddhists of India. Her lifelong spiritual journey informs her work, helping others create peace, harmony, and healing from within. Please now take in a deep breath, and as you exhale love, join me in welcoming Dr. Tanya G.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, Unity. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I had such an incredible experience last time I was here, and I'm just so tickled and thrilled to be here again. Back in the green room at Unity, we had a prayer circle, and each one of us spoke from our hearts for an intention for today, and I was so moved. Everyone there was asking that God flow through me, and it just opened my heart. And in that moment, I decided I was going to completely shift my presentation today. I'm not a scientist. I'm a heart-centered practitioner. To express science is like reading Greek, and it's just not my thing. And if you ever see me try to explain science, it's like I'm a deer caught in the headlight. So I'm going to speak from my heart. I want to share with you one of my first experiences doing breath work. And from this story, I will share a little bit what I know about what happens to you during a breath work. So let's preempt this with a little story about my life. It is true that at 5 years of age, my family took us to Hawaii. And I was given a small allowance, and my mom said, "You can buy something, a souvenir for yourself in the gift shop." I was so excited. Of course, I had no idea how much $20 was. That was a lot of money back then. But there was only one thing in that gift shop that I liked, and it was a wooden Buddha. It stood about this high, and it was one that was holding the hands up with the big belly. And I loved it. I said, "So, Mama, I want this one." And she said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "It's a happy fat man." And she said, "Okay then." So I bought it, and you know what? It sits on my altar. And I think even at that young age, I knew that I had some connection to love, to compassion, to kindness. And it is true that when I was in kindergarten, my teacher asked my parents for a little interview, and they thought I had done something terrible. But in reality, what had happened was my teacher wanted to meet my parents because she had never seen someone with such loving compassion. Apparently, I would tuck the kids in at the nap time and kiss them on the forehead. And I would also seek out the ones that were suffering, that were crying, and I would comfort them. And I would say, "It's okay, your mommy's coming back for you." And so this became a realization of my true nature. So years later, I had this incredible mystical experience that brought me to Buddhism. And I think that we are forever so lucky when we meet a teacher that can guide you along the path. And this teacher, he is a Rinpoche, a reincarnated master. And he ignited my heart. He helped me to study diligently. At this point, I was meditating 8 hours a day. I was practicing all of my Buddhist teachings, and I was at the temple 3 times a week. It was my complete devotion, and I loved it. But something very strange happened to me. I was so devoted that I was more interested in staying in this meditative state than to interact in the outside world. And I asked my blessed, precious teacher, I said, is this what you call loving compassion? He said, yes. And I said, is this loving detachment? And he said, it is your journey, Tanya. What does it mean to you? But for me, it felt odd. I was in my early 30s, I was seeking, I thought I knew it all and I thought it was mature, but no, that's not the truth. And so I dove a little deeper and I discovered a different teacher. After all those years of Buddhist training, I ended up getting an invitation to this church, to an event that was happening in your basement. A teacher had come to town. His name is Professor Juan Ruiz Naupari, and he was from South America. And he brought with him this amazing breathwork. It's called Pneuma breathwork. And Pneuma means spirit or breath in Greek. And I was like, what is this all about? The breathwork was about expansion of consciousness. It's about touching divinity. Now, I've been practicing Buddhism for quite some time now, so, we didn't use that terminology, especially anything to do with God. It was Buddha, Buddha, and Buddha, developing your Buddha nature. I had come to a point in my Buddhist studies, my heart seeked more. I loved everything about it, but I knew intuitively that there was something more, but I didn't know. So I lovingly accepted this invitation to breathe. What's the harm? I'm just breathing. Apparently, I was told, you have to breathe for 2 hours straight. And I said, well, this should be okay. And you're lying down on a mat. I said, sounds comfortable. And they're going to have the most incredibly energetic music. I go, sounds like fun. Let's do it. So I dove right in. I arrived downstairs, 65 people. We were mat to mat. That was like way before COVID. This was like decades ago. And I was a little nervous. It was a new experience. Everybody was there, and the teacher came. He didn't speak any English. And I found out, he had a translator, I found out that he had studied with Stanislav Grof and Christina Grof, who created holotropic breathwork back in the 1970s. They were the founders. Professor Juan, he had learned from them, but he elevated the method. What he did was he took this method of breathing, but he inlaid it with spiritual and psychological teachings. His intention was, how do we expand our consciousness to touch divinity, to touch God? Why? Why would we want to do that? And the answer is so simple. When we expand our consciousness, we realize that we are not who we think we are. We are beyond this. We are beyond this realm. Spirit exists. It flows through. It's tangible. And Professor Juan said something. He said, God is breathable. And I was allergic to the word God. Being a Buddhist, I thought that was weird. But all the hair on my arm stood up when he said that. This is my intuitive meter. This is my truth meter. And I got excited. Let's see what can happen. So we lay down. And Juan told us, Professor Juan said, there are 3 realms you may enter. It is based on South American Peruvian shamanism. I said, oh, interesting. He said the upper realm, where the angels reside. This is where in the shamanism is the condor realm. Now, the condor, has anyone seen a condor before? Oh, yeah, several of you, right? Oh, hey, hi. They have 11 feet wingspan, this condor. It's huge. I think they stand about that high. It's just massive. Imagine an angel, okay? So they're in the sky, condor realm, upper realm, angelic realm, and then there is the jungle realm, okay? That's where the puma is. And the puma represents, in psychology, transpersonal psychology, the realm where everything is about everyday life. Like our interpersonal relationships, our physical body, what we do. That's this realm of consciousness. And then there is the underground, the underworld. So this is what they call the serpent realm. And this is the realm where our deepest psychological defects occur. Defects like anger, resentment, jealousy, things like that. I know we all have that, so it's in there. Now, Professor Juan said, when you breathe, you will expand. Where you go is up to God. Will you go there? Will you go here? Will you go there? But wherever you go, listen with your heart. See what divinity has to show you, because what you see, you can change. What you cannot see, you can't change. I was intrigued. Still feeling a little bit ignorant and excited and a little bit overconfident. So I went in. The breath was really easy. It was like this. I'll demonstrate. It goes like this. For 2 hours. Easy. And sometimes it was like... But the trick was to keep breathing, to keep breathing. And God said, God did say this, but Juan said, remember, God is breathable. I said, okay. The music began. And it was like African drumming. It was super powerful. African drumming. It was like indigenous drumming. It was like, it was energetic, and it made you kind of want to dance in your mat because you're laying down for those 2 hours. But I was loving it. I was breathing. It was exciting. And what I didn't know was happening was, as you breathe like that, you know what's happening? Your chakras are opening. Your energy meridians are unblocking. The blood is circulating. You're oxygenating every molecule of your being. And your brain is getting activated. There's blood circulating, there's energy circulating, and we are an energy battery and transmitter. And Professor Juan said, keep breathing. God is breathable. And I kept breathing and breathing and breathing and breathing and listening to the music and breathing and breathing and breathing. An hour in, I was still breathing. I was sweating. My body was shaking. My hands were tight. I was so in it. It was having a physical experience. An emotional experience came. My heart was pounding. The music was cresting up high. I felt like I was running up a mountain. And the music started to shift. It went from energetic to triumphant to angelic as the music changed. I felt the craziest sensation. I felt expansion. I felt bliss. And I found out later through science that it's because the blood is circulated into the limbic system of the brain, which is responsible for emotions and memory. It was flooded with energy and activated, and I was expanding, and tears started to fall down my face. I wasn't like crying from pain and suffering. It was like I had been touched by something so much more powerful than me. And then I heard within me, God is love. It was so simple. God is love. The tears were coming down. My breath had subsided. My body was like in the shavasana state in the Hindus' philosophy, that is, the complete dead man's pose, completely at rest. And I wept gentle tears. And I thought, it's true. What the barrier I hit with Buddhism is that I knew there was something greater and bigger, not to talk down about Buddhism. My heart still resonates with Buddhism, but for me, I understood that love is the golden thread. Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Gnostic Christianity, Judaism, it's all love. And that, for me, was the truth. And that was the power that expanded me. And in that moment, it was as if I knew every cell of my body. Love is the power. God is love. It's just that simple. That was almost 2 decades ago. I have had approximately 200 breathworks since then. Each one has been different. Sometimes all I get is a shedding, just a shaking and shedding of energy. I'm a compassionate person. I work with a lot of near-death clients. I love them so deeply. I may be guilty of taking on some of that, but the breathwork helps me to shed all that off so I can continue to do my work, to serve, to be of service to God. I personally wanted to seek more. I wanted to know what consciousness was. I wanted to know who is that person that looks through my eyes. I wanted to know what's going to happen when I die. Is my consciousness going to continue? And the more that I understand and know consciousness, the more security I feel and the less fear I feel about dying. And when I work with clients, when I hold their hand near their last breath, I remind them, you are everything. God is love. You are love. This is not the end. We will continue. Energy is indestructible. Breath work is only one way that we can do this work. I've become a breathwork facilitator for Pneuma Breathwork from the Pneuma Institute. My work in the last 20 years is to continue my studies. I am so grateful for my blessed teacher, a humble, humble person, Professor Juan Rees-Napari. He's helped me, guide me back to my heart. And he says, don't listen to me, listen to your heart. I will show you the way, but you do the work. I'm grateful. May you all find your teacher. And if you have one, give gratitude. Teachers will come and go. Know yourself. Know thyself. Change what you can change. Dare to see what you do not see. God is breathable. God is love.